Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, just the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 757, and I am coming to you Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. Corey Romero is our co-host today. Bob is out visiting a customer, so we've got Corey today, and we got a great show. We're going to be talking about tiered memory with Puneet Sharma. We'll get to him. He'll tell me how to say that. And as usual, Tony Foster has joined us as well. So going to be a great show. I love tiered memory, and it's he has a great blog article on it, and we'll go through his blog article. It's a multi-section blog article, so we'll probably have him back to talk all about it. But before we get going, Corey Romero, out in Utah, how's it going?
It's going great. It's weather actually has been really nice here, but still no snow. No snow.
No,
really strange. Other than that, vExpert applications, we're still voting on those, and we are on target to reach February 16th for the announcement of vExpert awards. So excited about that. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, nice. I know that we're all in on the Connect Amsterdam in the Netherlands is coming up, and we've got social going out on all of that. So if you're in Europe and you're listening, this is the vMug show to be at. It's 2.5 days, and so Frank Denneman, Duncan Epping, Chris McCain and a bunch of others are doing great sessions over that 2.5 days. They're going to have certifications happening, so we got confirmation on that. So day 0 is a leadership event. So if you're a vMug leader, you might have been invited to the morning of day 0, which I believe is a Tuesday. That morning leadership, and then in the afternoon we're having the unconference where we've got AI 2-hour session on AI, open free form with kind of an agenda that the moderator will run. So we've got I think Frank Denneman is going to host that one for 2 hours, open conversation. They're going to be talking about GPU models, and I forget what the third one is, but they got categories. And then you can, if you have something to say, you can maybe do a little presentation, a 5-minute presentation, bring a slide, talk about things you want to talk about. So that's the unconference, day 0. At the same time, I believe HOLs will be open in the afternoon. So cool day for day 0. Then day 1 and day 2 are sessions. They have 5 tracks. So excited about that. Go to vmug.com, check it out. All of the vMug connects are listed on the site, and you can see the agenda for them. We're going to have code labs. I did purchase the GPUs for the code lab, so we'll be showing the mini forms with GPUs and custom coolers. So excited about that. That'll be fun lab. We did a little demo of the labs a couple days ago to some internal people, and they're like, oh wow, that's going to be cool. You should do some social media on that, because running GPU workloads, LLMs, on these little mini forms with custom coolers, chillers, always cool to have fun with custom gear. William Lamb has it on his blog, so if you want to order some and go play with it, you can also do that. So let's see, that's what's happening. We're marketing Minneapolis, Minnesota is in April. Go check out that date if you're going to be in the Midwest. I know Bob Plankers is going to be there doing a security session as well. So yeah, we're ramping up on all of the cool Connect activities for the community. That's ongoing. And I think, besides the vExpert apps, I believe that's what's on our agenda, and it's going to be a busy March, April, May. Then we transition into Explorer, activities. Explorer's going to be in Vegas again, in the Venetian. We're looking forward to that. A lot of what we did last year is going to be replicated. I don't think anything is getting cut. I think if anything, there's going to be a bit more community activity going on. It is a practitioner show. They're focusing on practitioners, and so stay tuned as we ramp up for Explore over the summer. So vMug coming up for the next 3 or 4 months. We're just going to be talking about vMug, and then as we go into the summer, we'll start switching to Explorer. And then there is a final vMug Connect in late November, I believe, in Orlando, which is kind of fun because it's a great great city to go and take your kids if you have any, right? And because there's a lot of extra stuff to do on the weekends, so good place to end up end the year, and that's it. So other than that, let's get to our guest. And first, we always introduce our guest with how do you say your name, and then give us your career arc, right? I know you're a blogger, you have your blog. We're going to be talking through your blog on tiered memory, but we always start with tell us who you are, how long you've worked at VMware or in the ecosystem, and then how did you get here? What's your career arc look like?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. My name is Puneet Sharma. I have spent the last 16 years navigate the ever-changing landscape in the IT sector. I started my back when we were in a still racking massive physical servers for every single application. But the turning point of that from last 8 years, I'm working on a VMware ecosystem since I have obsessed as how we can squeeze every drop of the performer out of the software-defined data centers. Over the last 8 years in a VMware, I seen the focus. I started my career in a vSphere 5.5. Now all the way I'm coming to VCF 9 world where we're in today. I spent a lot of time in a trenches. You can say the migration, troubleshooting performance, designing architectures, all these things. I work with some financial institutions, some government sectors. I worked on that in my previous past years. The really sparking my interest to memory tiering was their customers struggling with the memory walls. They have a huge CPU, was faster ever and ever, but they couldn't even afford enough RAM to keep up the data that what actually they need.
Right.
So I realized the future is moving from more on a RAM, but smarter memory management.
Right.
So I
So
thought to write all these blogs.
before we get into tiered memory, I do have a couple of questions, right? So, you're out of India, I believe, right? Bangalore, is that where you reside?
I born and bottom in a Punjab. I'm working in India. I'm working in a Bangalore. From
Right.
last, I believe, 7 years, I'm in a Bangalore. With a VMware, I've been a 3 years. Quarter past 4 years, you can say.
So, next thing, Puneet Sharma is your blog, right? So if you go to Puneet Sharma
Dot
blog
blog. Yes.
blog, all right, and I'll spell it if you're listening on the podcast. It's Puneet Sharma Sharma .blog. Go check it
Yes.
out. He's got great blog. How long have you been blogging?
From last 3 years, August 23rd, I just started with a multi-tenancy. When the VPC just as a launched, the projects are just as a launched within a version. I don't think 3.2 to 4.0. They're asking that time. I started my career for the blogging. After that, I done some blogging with the compliance, hardening, VLCM, and memory tearing. There's so many blogs I written. Some part I written for the automation.
Nice. Nice. I got to say, when I come into your blog, it's like you've got your vExpert notices all lined up in a nice little row. You've got skills. You got I think that's your lab. What are the skills? Are those your labs? I can't really tell. It's too small for me to read. Then you got your milestones, which I assume is certifications, right?
Yes, I did some VCIS certifications for that one for network virtualization and automation. With all these
Right.
passions, I have my small lab which I'm sharing in my home. Most of the labs which I'm getting from a Broadcom for testing.
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, nicely done. I really appreciate what it looks like, and let's get into memory tiering first, right? Let's just talk a little bit of high level around. I guess I've been a Unix admin for a lot of years, right? And I've created swap files all my life, right? Like in the old days
Yes,
when Spark twos, we had, we were running, stuff on Spark twos. You always had a Spark. You always had a swap disk or a spinning spindle that you'd make sure you made I think a 200 megabyte or 500 megabyte swap file, because your disk was maybe 800 megs, so you'd partition things up and make your swap file. And so I look at like memory tiering now, and I'm like, is this just another version of swap files, which we've
Yes.
been doing forever? Or why don't you give us an introduction to memory tiering? Because when I read your blog, I see that it's a little more than just creating swap files.
Yes. Let me give a brief on that one. Why actually we require a memory tiering for that one? Then we come to a picture why actually what is the use of memory tiering. In this notion of the CPU requirement in 2026, massive core counts will require on DRAM remain expensive, all these things. And those are power hungry, physical limited to the by the motherboards, all this. Even the world is moving to AI driven. So here for us to make a DRAM, it's very costly for us. So let's come with a focus why VCF9 come on the memory tiering. Memory tiering basically a game changer. It breaks the memory wall for a DRAM which actually created a market. Then while creating a hierarchy, there is a two types of memory are there. Tier 0 is a DRAM. Under the tier 1, there is a NVMe RAM is there that you consider tier 1. How it is actually working for the guest OS. For example, let's take one example of 1 TB physically. It might be since to a guest user 256 GB. But under the DRAM 768 GB, it is considered an NVMe. Okay. The DRAM is always called as a hot memory,
Okay.
tier 0. All
Right.
the initial packets are moving from the read inside of the DRAM on the tier 0. The cold packets which are not in a used for that particular OS, it is already
Hmm.
considered on the tier 1. So when
Okay.
the virtual machine needs some packets from a cold, it is moving to a DRAM.
In the OS land, does it actually know which OS you're using and which ones are core packages versus which ones aren't? Or is it just using an algorithm based on often used? Or is there a way for an operating system to say, no, these things need to be in tier 0 memory? Or does VMware actually identify what OS you're running on and know, hey, these are the kind of things that I need to lock into memory? Or is it just an algorithmic model that they apply that just uses best
So
case caching kind of thing?
yeah, definitely the best case of caching on that one. But there is a PCIe slots are there for NVMe, basically what they actually are using. For that slots, they are considering the memory packages and they are given the memory package to a DRAM to use that one. So this is the whole concept under they are considering on that one. But when you consider the proposition for a vSAN with the memory tiering, because vSAN also consider for a dedicated NVMe. Okay. When we are using those cache and capacity tiering in the vSAN, those particular disks we cannot use for a memory tiering.
Okay, right,
For a memory tiering in a vSAN, we require a separate NVMe devices. Okay,
right.
either you consider new PCI slot with the current ESXi host, or you can give another new ESXi host with the same capacity under the memory tiering that we can
Right, and
use.
I know we set up home labs where we got an SSD, a high end enterprise SSD, NVMe SSD,
Yes,
put it in, and that gave it because we had physical constraints on memory card slots, right? So we went tiered as well, right, on our home lab with mini forms. So I get that, and so what you're saying is then allocation of the tier 0 versus tier 1 is based on algorithm, right? Based on
yes.
kind of an algorithm, what it thinks is most important, and they don't do
There
it by
is
OS, or they might do it by OS, but they don't know that, oh, this is Windows 11 and it needs X locked in versus a Linux it would need Y. It's just going to do it by an algorithm, a caching algorithm kind of model.
there is one behind that. There is one you can say the one terminology or technology working that is called a MMT, memory monitoring tiering. What actually it will do? Let me give an example as a librarian.
Okay.
Okay, uh, MMT always watching the every book in a library. It identifies the book data page are being recently constant gather some dust. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the books which are used, they are considering as the data pages in the tier 0. Okay, the books pages which are not considering under the use that is coming under tier 1.
Yeah, all right.
So
So it's
tier
just
1
you.
always come as a
Yeah, it's
main shelf.
usage. It's usage tiering,
Yes,
right? Which is typical of any kind of paging caching algorithm, right? It's just
yes.
looking at as all right. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
There is
So,
one more thing is there, Eric, under the MMT. When the packet move from DRAM to a NVRAM, that always come as a read. When it is coming from the NVRAM to DRAM, they're always coming in the right. So
Right.
those algorithms considering like those status. Those things I already mentioned in my blog in a part one when
Right.
you consider the host.
Right. So we haven't really got that now. Before we get to your blog, I gotta say it is perfect timing. Well, I don't know if it's perfect timing. It's ugly timing, right? In that memory is skyrocketed, right? And my son works at Roku, and even the Roku little players, they're looking at memory pricing is costing double the price of the unit because all memory is just being gobbled up by AI, big AI data builds, right? And I think it was Samsung just decided to get out of low cost memory chips in order to go to enterprise memory chips. So they took a whole fab and took it offline and canceled low cost memory chip production in order to go to enterprise high speed memory chip production for the big cloud providers who need to just buy up everything. So it is interesting that memory now is, when we did it, it was memory was more expensive, but it wasn't like insanely expensive. But now with everything going on with AI and the memory market changing, tiered memory is actually really beneficial, right? In fact, it's probably the only way you're going to be able to meet your demands, would be my guess. So did
Yes,
you plan this blog article knowing all this? That's what you figured? You just, you'd write a blog article about this because you knew the memory was going to get super expensive?
I wish to write on that one, but I write on a properly technology based, but actually in a future prospect on that one.
I knew that I would get you to smile at some point, right? Like that was my goal here, right? Like I think somebody over somewhere is, scheming to make memory more expensive because I need to buy some memory for my servers. So let's get on to your blog article now, right? Which again is posted on your blog. It's great. Uh, Puneet Sharma blog 2025 0906 deploying vSphere 9 memory. You can Google it. I just Googled his name and said tiered memory, Puneet Sharma, and it's one of the first hit. You get it really easy in Google. So let's take a look at that blog article. You're doing it in stages. What's the idea behind stages?
Basically, memory tiering, if you think about that, is not a particular, okay, on the particular hardware it is bounded. It is more on a terminology. Okay, first blog which is created for the host level, where a single host under the cluster, how you can manage the memory tiering. Second part I created a cluster level. Okay, now in a cluster we have a 10 host, 20 host. How would make a same level of the specification sequence performance wise in the memory tiering on a cluster level. The third block I taking care of the vSAN level. When we are taking the vSAN storage, most of the people's come in now one focus. Okay, I'm using a memory tiering. Does my performance capacity is going to be degraded in a vSAN? So those terminology is given as a preference here.
I see. I see. So I can see I'm on part one and I see a link to part two. Do you have part three also written?
Yes, it is already there under a part one.
All right. All right. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay, this blog. Yep. You got links for all three. Sorry, I was looking at the sidebar. If you just come in, you have a great index. All the key components are indexed there, including a conclusion at the end. And then if you scroll down, you do have this blog will be structured into three distinct sections. All right. Cool. Good. Good. So I know you trended on the article, right? The article has trended, so congratulations to that. It's always great to have people reading your deployment. Any challenges in setting this up, running it in your home lab, and then writing a blog article? Have you gotten any feedback of aha moments with regards to this? What are some key takeaways?
Yeah, during writing my first blog, it took me 25 days. 6 or 7 times I recreated the lab because most of the time when we are looking for because the VCF9 lessons, when we are using that in a different way, the memory training come in a picture and different models and versions. When we considering configuring the memory table on a particular host level, sometimes hosts are not responding. That is my lab issue, not in actual production environments. And during creating the deleting the partition, running some commands and never get actual outputs which I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a best practices, tech docs on a Broadcom document. I read all these things, then I recreated all these things. The major time I will configuring the particular fourth point, ideal use cases. The test use cases is how it is going on, where we are using in a VDI level, in a consolidation previous workloads, how the fluctuation will happen in a environments when memory tiering is not properly used. All these are given on there. And the major part is the budget.
I noticed when I was reviewing it, I noticed that you did classify things by workloads, right? VDI and others. Is there a significant performance change when you're deploying tiered for the workloads itself? Is it just how much tiered memory you need, or how much SSD versus memory? Is there a ratio that you do per workloads, or is there what's the difference in workloads?
In the first part, you can see the host level that is checking on a particular host level. In a host level, you can figure for a 100 GB, two NV devices, and a one third one I use for that one for NV and two SSD. Sorry. Under that, when you're considering this particular CPUs were particularly required for a particular CPU on that one, AMD processor I was using in a Epic, you can see there are 2.9 gigahertz right there, and the processor core per year I'm using the one, and the sockets are given particular for a 48, that which can considering as a memory when it is going in a burst level, it will making a low.
Yeah, and you cover that. Which should who should care? Ideal use cases. You've got that in a section, so you take a little bit of each one, whether it's large scale VDI or consolidated diverse workloads versus environments with fluctuating memory demands. So you kind of address it. It's nice. So like that. Then you get into actual screenshots with things that you need to do to kind of get things configured, right? Which I gotta say is nice. You actually go through and kind of show the screenshots, which thank you for that. Anything that was tricky from a GUI perspective of getting started, right? Like I know that when we did our memory, we configured it all by command line. So I'm just wondering, I think it's still command line, right? Or are there
Yes,
GUI?
it is
Yeah,
a mixed patch of the GUI and the CLI. Okay, in the GUI when you're configuring, okay, for a second I check, I have given us CLI captures in a document.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, all
some
right.
people like only GUI, some people like only a CLI work. That's why given those are. Even every single command I already mentioned there. What command actually, what impact is that? That I also mentioned there.
When I did mine, I just allocated mine to a single NVMe device, right? Like we got a whatever the number of terabytes was. I think a terabyte device, right? High speed terabyte device, and then we only allocated 256 gig to our tiered memory for that host. Can you have multiple NVMe devices and add more than one device to expand memory, or is it basically a single device? How does that behave?
No, it is adding of that multiple devices cannot be
Multiple
that one.
devices.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
If it, there is a particular formula behind that is there, that you can find in I think in part two. There one ratio one is a default, and the 1:4 we can use on that one. In a part two, I believe I given that particular formula. Give me a minute.
Hmm. All right. Yep. You have the list of NVMe devices. Verify the MD devices. Is there
Apologies
a
for
is there a size
uh,
limit?
size limit. I never checked. Give me a minute. Let me give a one table. Allow me a minute, please. Should be 1:4.
It's all right. So you have the commands lines here as well, right? To come through.
So while you're looking for it, this may be a softball question.
What is
Is it
memory
possible
tiering? Yep.
to
All in just looking through total memory increase from 96 gig to 192 gig.
Yes.
You can look at that status. So you basically take through everything. Once you configure it, you take through to see how you can see that it's all running.
Yes. Even in a part 2, you can find out the capacity planning consideration. Under that, I given
All
a
right.
table.
That's all in your first blog article, right? Which is just covering the deploying vSphere 9 memory tiering.
Yes. And there is one more important
what do you need to do for cluster integration and management? So your second blog talks about that. What are the key elements of cluster integration?
So cluster is not the same way on a, you can say the uniformity of the ESXi not same. You should be all ESXi should be on the same configuration. And for that one, we have to configure about the drift configuration for that one on a cluster level. It is not seem like a particular standalone host you can do. Is I'm audible, Eric?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, Tony, you can
Yeah,
hear
thanks.
Yes, can
Yeah,
you
thanks.
hear
it.
me?
I cannot hear anyone. Did I pull out my headset?
Okay, well,
Yeah,
we can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you.
If that works.
So, okay.
Interesting.
No audio for me. Well, continue on, and I'll try to figure out why I'm not getting audio, and I'll stop talking. Tony, have fun.
Okay, awesome. Well, Puneet, while we're waiting for Eric to figure this out, can I do something completely crazy and go with the smallest memory configuration for a box? I'm thinking home lab here. So
Okay.
like one chip or one stick of memory in my box, and then go for NVMe um, for the rest of it, and basically force just about everything into tier 2 cache? Or is there a limit where I have to have a certain amount of memory for things to be functional?
Okay, the limit prospect from that one, what I have tested in my lab. Okay, I given let's take a ratio wise. DRAM,
Mm-hmm.
I have a 1:1. NVMe device partition I given for a 1 TB. So in a DRAM size and the NVMe size, I have a 512 and a 512 GB. That is 1 and 1 ratio. This is
Mm-hmm.
default one. Now I want to looking for a same specifications if I have a NVMe partition 256 GB instead of 1 TB. So what we'll
Mm-hmm.
do in a DRAM size in a GB, I have a 512 and a NVMe I have a 256 GB. That is a 1:1. 256 GB and 256 GB. They're considering on that one. Now there is another third consideration is that I have a 4:1. This
Okay.
is a 4:1. It is supported in this environment. Okay, I'm not still talking about a burst. Burst one is a 1:16. That
Yep.
time our labs are not, my lab is not working when I considering that particular scope. When it is a 4:1, NVMe, for example, I have a 1 TB. So DRAM size, we have a 512, and the NVMe size under the GBs is a 128 GB. So that is 1:4.
Gotcha.
Now,
Okay.
now there is one last partition is there, 4:1, where we have a 32 GB, very least NVMe device partition. Now DRAM, we have a 256 GB. So partition of the 4:1, we have NVMe 32 GB. These structures I have tested in my lab. When we are talking about a 1:16, my lab is burst. I never tested
Mm-hmm.
that particular scenario.
Okay. Cool. So that gives me an idea what capabilities are for home lab. I can't sit there and
Yes,
just go, okay, I'm going to go get this 4 gig chip off of eBay and stick it in my system because it's super cheap, and then shove everything else off to NVMe. I actually have to follow the ratios, and you actually have a really nice table in the second part of your blog on those ratios and the
yeah, those
partition
are
sizing and
tested
everything.
ratio which I tested in my lab.
Hmm.
There is some other ratio should be there. Okay, even maybe they can you can find on a tech blog, tech docs on the Broadcom. But those are the tested scenarios which I pushed it there.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's see.
Only one scenario it is missing under the workload analysis, that is AI. AI we cannot be tested under these scenarios because it doesn't have an environment for that one, because that a huge amount of resources they are needed.
Yes, it does. So in here, looking at part 2 of your blog, you talk about NVMe device health and life cycle.
Yes,
So,
I given that one.
um, so is there a particular type of NVMe that you should get over other types of NVMe if you're going to do
Uh,
memory tiering?
Here, if you see the right endorsement, we are given a structure, the terabyte return when data on a per day or a per level of your given. Okay, when the dedicated NVMe given for a memory tiering, that is designed the constant page out of the memory contribute. Okay, but actually the NVMe given, they have some failure domains for that one. Definitely they have impacts. It should not be on the same constant weightage going on. It is not a direct sorting or storing VM data when it is fair. The memory tiering is the recache. You can say from a tier 0 to tier 1, all these, there's a microseconds work. Sometime it is failed. That time it is considering under the failure domains considering. I was facing those issues twice in my lab. After that, I rebuilt on that one.
I see. So definitely want to pay attention to the right endurance on the NVMe when you go and put it in. And looks like Eric, thought Eric might be back.
Yeah, he's still having issues.
He's
Audio.
still having
Yeah.
issues, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So out of curiosity, is there any difference between 9.0 and 9.1 when you get into memory tiering? Were there any changes or anything made between?
What I hear in some documentations in advanced memory tiering, they're considering for that one for AI, ML languages, for LLM, what actually they are using. In a 9.0, what I feel, okay, sometime the memory is going to burst during the production, or sorry, during a lab environment, not in a production. I have tested this one. But when you're going to upper version, definitely you get some new features, new prospects are made from the deduplication of the NVMe. But for a future prospect, what I feel, okay, the memory tiering should not be on a host level, cluster level. It should be scaling from a rack scale memory pooling. Multiple of ESXi hosts are there.
Mm-hmm.
There are some memory, so there are memory tiering should be there under that one. Ample of VMs should become, memory tiering should be configured on the rack level. Right now, we are thinking prospect only from a host level, cluster level, and after the vSAN level. That is more on a component wise. If we're thinking from a rack level, I believe we get a more beneficials. That is, I
Awesome.
was thinking as a futuring. Maybe they will consider those part. Maybe I'm speaking in a different thought process.
I'm back.
I'm back as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
Finally,
Eric
yeah,
also got.
Wonderful.
yeah.
We all made it back
We all
because
made it back. Yeah.
all of the
Uh,
screens went spinning on me.
oh yeah, and you got when I left, I was still talking about memory price hikes, and I see that you posted a link to the Samsung memory price hike signals higher data center costs for enterprise HTML. Good link there. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know if we've covered enough of the three. I don't know how far you got in your on his blog article. You know, the third. I had to close all my tabs, so I got to go open up that. But the third article, did you cover anything there?
I hadn't finished scanning it. So
All right.
we talked about making sure that you get the right size of memory, and then talked a little bit about if there were any changes between 9.0 and the next release. And so that's where we were. And then
All right.
all the screens went spinning. So
Yeah.
we're back, and I'm
All right.
quickly
Good. Good. Good.
scanning part 3.
Yeah. Well, why don't you take us through part 3, Permit? Let's see. Puneet.
Yes,
All
Eric.
right.
Sorry.
That's okay. So why don't we talk about part 3? As long as we're here, and I think that's your end of your 3-part series. And then I have a question on bug reports on how much percentage of tiering you can do. Let's say I have physical memory of a terabyte. Can I do 10 terabytes of tiering when I only have 1 terabyte of physical memory? So that's my one question. But then you can also talk about what you covered in
So you have a 10
stage
terabyte
3.
in a physical, 1
Well,
terabyte you're looking for.
there was some concern that I could only tier X amount, right? Because if you go beyond, let's say I have a terabyte of tier, a terabyte of physical, can I do a terabyte? Can I do 2 terabytes? How much physical to tiering do I actually need? How much T0 versus tier 1 memory do I have to have?
It is, as I said before, this should be in our ratios. I already explained the previous question or Tony. If you have a 10 terabyte and looking for a 1 terabyte, there should be very minimal for that one. Okay. You can consider either for a 1:1, either a 1:4, or a 4:1. These are the tests which I already given. If you have a 10 terabyte, I think 5 terabyte you can use for NVMe. If you plan for a 4:1, we cannot do that one. That is a 1:4. You can plan on that one, I believe so. For 10 ratio to a 2 TB per NVMe, you can give on that. That is, but what best I know that I explained.
Okay.
So just looking at this, I didn't see it called out anywhere, and I'm going to ask, is it possible, let's say I have a virtual machine and I'm doing something with it and I don't want it to tier the memory. Is there a flag I can set on that virtual machine configuration so that none of its memory will tier? Everything else can tier, but that one virtual machine, I want it to always use actual tier 0 memory.
I believe that is on a host level, not a virtual OS level. Okay, the one thing. The second thing, if you're planning for a particular, there is particular use case for that one. Okay, for example, I have a SAP HANA virtual machines. I have a SQL or Oracle particular virtual machine. For those resource hungry or a memory hungry virtual machines, we would never plan for a memory tiering. It should be always for our DRAM because they are looking for a read and write packet very fast.
Mhm.
And offload packet should be under the same.
Makes sense.
So memory tiering not for all workloads. There are for particular certain use cases where we can use that one. Maybe in future in our upcoming version that should come up, but not right now.
Makes sense. So is there a set of monitoring tools where we can monitor how our memory tiering is running?
That I believe you can check over the ARIA operations that I can do, or a CLI level of the particularly ESXi host. You can check the status of the memory. Even in a part one, you can see I given some commands there. You can check how it is going on. If you want to see the cluster level, kernel level, you can see how the memory using runtime configuration type. You can see it is a false or a true, and the capacity level you can check on the logs.
So your part 3, memory tiering considerations with vSAN environments, right? Just scanning this, it would seem like what you're taking us through is how to add tiered memory in your vSAN cluster without breaking anything, bringing down everything. So keeping your vSAN open, taking a node in that, and then adding tiered memory to that, or allocating an NVMe device to that, then bringing that back up into your vSAN cluster, and then bringing out another node and adding the tiered, so that all of the nodes have tiered memory. Is that what you're doing here?
Yes, in a vSAN, as I explained before, there should be a mixed environment because vSAN itself has a NVMe where you need a cache and
Right,
capacity tier. You're
right.
adding a new NVMe that is particular for a memory tiering, which I shown there. If you see in the blog, I given a two approaches. One approach, the old host you have, which are compatible with the NVMe, add the new PCI slot, add the new memory. Approach two, we can configure as a new ES6 host, spinning in the same cluster. Then we put on the other NVMe RAM.
Yeah, right, right, right. And then you took us through approach 1 in the blog, right?
Yes, due to resource conjunction, I don't have much resources to use in a lab.
And then you give the CLIs to do it. So nice, clean model.
Because I love to always go for a CLI instead of GUI. CLI giving you better picture
Yeah,
because
yeah.
most of the time GUI are going to stuck when you're doing a troubleshooting.
So I
In my
know
cases, I face.
in 9.0.2, did they add any additional reporting? I know they were planning on some new tiered memory reporting in either the operations console or somewhere else, where you're going to get, I don't suppose you've had time to look at that, but I believe there is going to be more tiered memory reporting capability. And Tony, I know you asked that question, but I wasn't paying attention but I know that I don't know if it's out yet. That's what I don't know, is I don't know if they've done anything to increase reporting yet, or is it still just you get the fact that it's configured, the gigabytes you've configured for tiered, and that's basically it. And they don't give you kind of which VM's consuming X amount of pages in the tiered memory, but I know that reporting is coming at some point.
Maybe in the future they are going to integrate this memory tiering part as a reporting in RE operations.
Yeah,
That is more prospectively required. As a Tony said, how we monitor, we can already configure the memory tiering, then how could I monitor that one?
right.
It is properly configured, it properly working or not. That should be part under that.
Right, and I know that when we were at the hackathon, Tony, last at Explore, that was one of the conversations that we had with some of the people there. Some of the engineering support was that our hackathon project was to kind of build some additional capability to see what's being tiered and which VM is consuming X amount of pages in tiered versus tier 0 versus tier 1. And so what we got back from that hackathon is that, yeah, you can do some of this, and we wrote some code to do a little of this, but there wasn't a lot of API support. But it was coming, the API support was coming, and they were also mentioning that, in future releases of VCF, they are going to do some tiered memory reporting in operations, right? So, but I don't know if that was back when we were on 9.0, and I don't believe it's out yet, but that's coming.
It should, because everything under the VCA fleet management operations definitely should come under that.
Yep. Right. All right. So as we come up to the top of the hour, we always like to ask our guests, what are you excited about for the rest of 2026? Like, is it just helping people implement the VCF and explaining how to do tiered? Do you have any future blog articles you're thinking about? What is your plans for the rest of 2026?
Definitely, I will go further for the different new technologies. Okay, a few minutes back, I just shared the futuristic thought, which I shared with the Tony a few minutes back. Okay, I'm thinking right now what we are thinking from a memory tiering on a host level, cluster level, vSAN level. Why we are not thinking about a rack scale memory pooling? Okay, is a standard memory problem within the clusters. Okay, if we are planning the RAM locked, DRAM locked on a rack level, okay, easily we can place the memory training for all the workloads. Right now we are thinking on the particular cluster level. I given a broad picture for that one under the one rack. There are multiple ESXi hosts. Considering under one pool of the memory training, use the NV slots for those one and consider those memory for our workloads. And that will give you a better performance. That is my thought.
You just blew my mind with that because I'm applying that to a VDI environment, and I'm like, you can do some really cool stuff with that at that point. That
Yes.
would be absolutely awesome.
Because now the generation is moving to the AI, LLM. Okay. They're not considering on the particular host cluster level. They're thinking on a different geographically level. So if you're pulling the memory from a rack level or other data center prospects, maybe give her a better picture for us.
How do you pull the
Absolutely.
memory at the rack level? I don't even understand how you would do that.
That
I get
that
doing it in
is
a
the idea of
server,
thinking.
right?
That is the thinking.
So I'll take a shot at this, and this is probably going to be really high level on how something like that would work. If you look at how a lot of AI environments are built, you pool the resources together and operate across the resources by just sending packets to different systems to work on. And you can basically smear a packet across multiple GPUs, and it's not paying attention to what boxes those GPUs are in. The
Mhm,
underlying
mhm.
OS handles it. And so if you can unify the memory into that model and go, oh, I'm needing more memory over on this particular system, I'm going to put it here. I can use it across the system, especially when you look at the high speed interconnects where we're going
Okay,
above
right.
400 gigabit network connections. You can do some really cool stuff at that point.
So you would need some new tech to do that though, right? I don't think can you do that today? Like I'm just thinking how you share, an NVMe pool, right? Like if you have network attached NVMe array or something that then I can connect to all the, vSphere
See,
servers.
few years back we are still thinking about the how the DRS working. After the how the HA is going to performing, how the vMotion is going to work. All this come with the generation gaps, and the technologies come with the under VMware scopes. Definitely, it should also come in the future. The rack scaling, memory pooling, which we are thinking. Because now we are moving to GPUs. Definitely, we should need thought process should be more innovative.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, that's something exciting for 2026 that you could pull some of that together by the end of the year. That would be neat. Yeah, excited about that. Do you plan on going to any of the Explore on tours? Are you going to do any kind of papers? Are you thinking about submitting a paper on any of this or any of the tiered
Not
memory implementations?
not right now,
No.
but
All right.
definitely I will.
Do you ever get to work with customers?
Yes, for a memory tiering, I given a
Mhm.
one proposal, one of the banking sector. It is still under a discussion. Designing phase we already passed. Maybe very soon we'll get on that one. And they are
Right.
adopting the VCF 9.0.2, the new model.
That would be an interesting paper, right? I think that as we come into the end of into August, right? Like having some reference implementations of large scale tiering environments, would be absolutely consumable, right? People would like to see that. So you got a shot there. Just gonna look at. All right. Okay, so final 4 minutes until we get to the top of the hour here. It's 4 minutes to 1. We do live stream on youtube.com/vbarbecue. If you've listened this far, you can go to our channel and give us a like and a follow. youtube.com/vbarbecue, VBARBECUE. We put all our episodes up there, so you can go check them out, give us a like and follow. And then we do talk barbecue here. So you're in India, so Puneet, what do you do any barbecue? I know a lot of people are vegetarian in India, but some are, some aren't. What's your barbecue story?
And a barbecue, I more love to a non-veg. In a tandoor, separate things, different slices of a chicken sticks we can use.
Nice,
So when you
nice.
feel hungry, yeah.
Do you ever grill outside? Do you guys get to grill, or do you just go buy barbecue?
No, I never go to kitchen for all these stuffs. I always take my help from my mother, my wife.
What seasonings do you end up using? Do you guys have unique Indian seasonings that you like to do your meat with?
I think October to Jan.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I know that I've got a 50th birthday party coming up, Tony. So we're gonna do just a bunch of tri-tip on the grill with charcoal, right?
Oh, awesome.
Make that happen. I did ribs 2 weeks ago and smoked them, and the last couple of times my smoker's been gone a little haywire. I set it to 220, and I come out and it's at like 280, 290. Just I don't know. I got a Traeger smoker problem now. And
I was gonna say, have you cleaned your pellet feeder, and B, have you checked for any damage on your vents?
Yeah,
because it almost sounds like you either have a feeder problem or one of your vents is leaking air.
Yeah, I think I got a feeder problem in it. I think pellets must have, gotten, and so it thinks it needs to feed pellets, but it's, then all of a sudden it feeds a bunch of pellets. So I see a spike in the temperature. But I did read an article about the 321 rib model, and they say that no, you shouldn't be using that. 321 is way too much time. Yeah, you should do like 2-1-0 or 2-1 and a little bit, right? Like that. And that's what I'd say. My ribs fell off the bone. So when I went to, they were yummy, right? But when I tried to pull them off the rack, I just had a bunch of pulled pork rib meat, right? Like they did not stay together. I barely got them out, and I had guests coming over, so I saved some of the good ones. Like I got half of them off in rib format. But I've been definitely overcooking. Now it could be the temperature was too hot, and I was getting spikes. But also, I read that 321. This guy put a video out where he said, "Do not follow the 3 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour." And he did an example of it where he put 2 ribs and he did 1-3-2-1, and his were exactly like mine. The 3-2-1 method was ripping. It was way overdone, pulling off. Where he did basically a 2. Check the temperature. If it's getting done, you're getting done. Don't do the temperature, not the time.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. 3-2-1 works great for large chunks of meat, especially tough large chunks of meat.
Right.
And not so much for the ribs, because when you look at the bone ratio to meat ratio,
there's not a lot of meat covering the bone, right? So it doesn't take too long to cook it right off the bones. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's our barbecue report. Corey Romero, what's your deal, man? Do you even do barbecue anymore? Come on.
I don't. I spent so much time in California perfecting everything, and then coming to Utah, I just don't want to restart. But as far as the 3-2-1 method goes, yeah, I've actually I spent a lot of time perfecting it down to the minute of perfecting the 3-2-1. But yeah, 3-2-1 is way too overcooked
for baby back ribs. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And
I last year I was making baby back ribs perfectly. They were amazing. But this year I've done twice now where maybe I just started doing a brisket with 321 and I never used 321 on my ribs, but I've forgotten, right? I don't know what happened, but I'm going to have to fix that because I need some good ribs. All right, with that, I'm going to be making tri-tip next week. It is lunchtime. Puneet, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for doing the great blog article. That's a great series. We'll be promoting it where we're tracking on advocacy. It's a great one. If you want to just go read through how to set up your tiered memory, go for that. Great blog article. Again, it trended. So thanks for coming on the show and talking us through it. Sorry we had a little bit of roughness in the middle, but thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tony. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
All right, everybody have a great week. Next week, we got Ryan Johnson coming on the podcast to talk about Packer, which is a plugin that's for vSphere. And IBM bought the Packer tool vendor. I forget the name of the tool vendor that Fear of the Beard went to work for them for automating your data center. Packer is a product that automates your data center. IBM bought it, and now we're supporting the plugin. Ryan Johnson's going to come and talk about the plugin, which Ryan Johnson was our old co-host back in around 2012 time for the podcast. So great to have him back on the show. We'll have that. And then a year show after that, we got Eric Sloop coming back to talk VCDX. So stay tuned. We're going to have some podcasts. Should be fun. We should have Bob Blankers back next week. Until then, go get some barbecue and have a great week.
Thanks, team.